All right, let's see. Do I have audio? Looks like I got audio. Sorry, I don't have the have my stunt glasses, but welcome to evidence-based audio number 169, and this is The Silence is Deafening. So first off, and this is pretty awesome, White Tie has got the White Tie theme assembler script. And let me read this to you. With my default V6 modder supplies, and let's go there real quick so you can see what that is. White Tie's V6 default modder supplies. I've done my best to make the V6 theme as approachable to modelers as possible, but I'm acutely aware that generating images in 3 sizes is daunting work, and there's not yet a great deal to choose from yet for those who just want to swap out some elements. So I shall be providing some as time and inclination allows, all in 100%, 150%, and 200%, all at exact sizes so you can just swap them into the default theme with no messing about with Walter. If you don't know what Walter is the Reaper compositing system. I think, how would you say it? Walter lets you define how a theme is going to act. If you're not a Reaper user, it probably doesn't matter too much to you, but Reaper lets you have a lot of customizability about how things look and how things act, what happens when you shrink things, what happens when you stretch or resize stuff. And Walter can provide the logic, like do you want to hide certain buttons when you make it a certain size, you know, so that's the rules for, that's what Walter does. And so White Tie's provided all these different things. Actually, there's some really nice looking stuff in here. And, but this theme assembler will let you pick these things pretty easy. So let me read this. It is a script I have written that shows how the various options look and automates the copying of files into its own theme called assembled theme and updates it in real time. It can also do some more complex stuff than that, like rewrite values in the RT config file. It will do more of that in the future. But the key thing is that you don't need to understand what any of that means, just point and click. That's the point of this. And the script itself is very much a work in progress, but the theme it outputs is a fully functional Reaper theme based on the default 6 theme with complete 100%, 150%, and 200% high DPI support throughout, and the usual theme adjuster. So first you download the script, choose options, and drop it where your scripts go. And in the action list, we're going to pull this out, assembler. So I'm going to pull this up so you can see what it is. And so here's a let's see. Oops, let me get rid of this. So let's say I wanted to change the way the record button looked, let's say, or the loop button. How about that? Let's change the loop button. So I click on the loop button and I can make it like this. I can make it like that. I don't know what something keeps flashing on me over here. I think I'm doing something. This particular theme may not like it. Something keeps flashing, sorry. Let me see what's going on. Okay, well, you can see from my transport down here that when I change these things, it's changing changing what it looks like. So if I have the loop off, let me turn that off. So change it to alloy. See, so I'm changing these things. Let's go to the TCP. So here's the TCP, here's the fader. Let's change that. And now you see it's got these segmented faders. You can actually make some really cool stuff. Arc looks real nice. You want to make the Mac looking stuff. So now when I do that, yeah, look at that. That's actually kind of pretty. Black line. So this is your normal one. White line. Green line. This is actually pretty cool. Radar. What's radar do? Interesting. Flower. So you have all these different fader options. Dots. Might be kind of hard to see some of these. But, I mean, you really got a lot of choices here. Interesting, where'd the fader go? Where's the meters? So Let me try and move this. So kind of surprised. Why do some of these have meters and some of them don't? That's a little freaky. Let's see. So I'm gonna go to the meters. You know, like fluorescent meters. Some of them are showing, some of them aren't. But once stuff is gone, it should be fine. You got your pan and width controls. You got your faders for the MCP. There's all kinds of nice faders. So this is pretty cool. You can really. What is this? Is this when it's disarmed? Oh, this is for the MCP. Sorry, that's why it's so weird. Think, or is that the TCP? I don't know. Mixer input. So you could really, you know, I really like the contrast stuff, and so you could really get away with some cool looking stuff here. Let's see. So yeah, I'm not sure why the meter. I guess the meter is shared between the TCP and the MCP. But anyway, this is really cool. This theme adjuster thing. So if you really wanted to do some of this theming stuff, it's not going to be so painful as it used to be. So you can just swap out some things. And I'm probably going to go make a really high contrast theme for myself pretty soon. Okay, so next thing I had some. Looks like John Tidy's got a video customizing the Reaper 6 theme, something on Reaper
White Tie,
blog.
the creator of the Reaper theme, has just released a script that's making customization a whole lot easier.
Yeah, so go to John Tidy's channel, Reaper blog on YouTube, and he's got a video on this. And he's saying once you got it done, put up some screenshots if you want. And I already saw some really cool themes done here. So I'm probably going to be making a really high contrast one. Okay, so next thing, some chorus stuff I kind of got behind on. Somebody asked, what is the difference between old and modern electric guitars? You could make see, this is my thing. There's this belief that you can't make something that was old today. And, you know, they almost have a point in the fact that the last time we were in the moon was like almost 50 years ago. And it would be hard for us to get back to the moon right now. That's kind of pathetic when you think about it. But that's not really because of technology. That's because of just pathetic anti-science layabouts and crappy politicians. But if you really wanted to make an old guitar today, you could make an old guitar today. You might not want to have as much mercury and lead in the paint or whatever, but I mean, you still could make that stuff. The difference between old and modern electric guitars is you can make a better guitar now. I know people want this old vintage crap that doesn't stay in tune and noisy and whatever, but you could make that today. So the difference between old and modern electric guitars, I would say that we tend towards flatter fretboards now, but you don't have to. You can make any that you want. You could have much better frets. Now you think about like Plek machines and things like that. Much quieter electronics, much easier customization. Really modern guitars should mean something besides making them out of wood, I think. But that's what I think. And then when I was looking at what other people had answers, I see Cora's got a little cash grab here, it looks like. Start your free trial in order to access this answer. Like, I need a Cora Plus to access an answer. Sad. At least I don't have to access a question. Pay for a question. Eesh. But yeah, I don't know. Cora's had a little bit of problems over the last little bit anyway. Here's one that'll make you feel old, if you can answer this. How did people listen to music before portable digital devices? Isn't that sad? I mean, there was music before there was digital, right? We had Walkmans, we had cassette players, we had 8-track players in cars. There was even record players in cars. So all the old analog formats were is what people listen to. People used to hold transistor radios next to their ears. If you ever watch the movie The Killing Fields, you see back in the 70s, they're carrying, they make a big deal. It's a transistor radio. Instead of a tube radio, you can carry it around, power with batteries. And they would hold it right up next to their head and walk around, man. That was then later on, as they got bigger, you got the ghetto blasters, right? But, yeah, we used to, before there was digital, we still had to listen to music. You didn't have to have the band come over and play at your house. You had cassettes, you had 8-tracks, you had records, and then, later on we had CDs and stuff. It's pretty funny, this answer right here. Easy. They learned to play musical instruments and played music for themselves. But come on. Okay. Why is the round sound hole the industry standard for acoustic guitars rather than another shape? Now, is it, right? It pretty much is today, but it seems like when I look at pictures of early acoustic stringed instruments, most of them had F holes, like violins do. This guy says, I guess you've never seen an archtop guitar or any other guitars like a 335 with F holes like violins or mandolins. Round holes appear on flat top acoustics unless you've got an Ovation or Godin, which make models with slits rather than round holes. Then you have guitars from Rickenbacker and Benedetto, for example, that use stylized F holes. But why? Why is the round hole? So this guy's name is Jerry Holt, not Gary Holt, even though it has a G. Maybe he calls himself Gary Holt. I don't know. But it says the round hole is undoubtedly the easiest shape to cut out consistently. In addition, it offers benefits in terms of strength and rigidity. Yeah, I mean, an F hole, you're not taking out as much material, but you got some sharp points in that thing. Let's see if anybody answer this one. Says this is the answer to the question. It's all about efficiency. The first weird sound hole I saw was the Garth Brooks Takamine. I'm not sure what's in there. And here's another one. Upgrade to Quora Plus to access this answer. I really like this one. Why did acoustic guitars not have an adjustable truss rod? Some do. Any guitar or ukulele without a truss rod or an adjustable truss rod, I think it's a piece of crap. I'm sorry. I know all you classical guys are going to kill me. All you ukulele players, whatever. It's $16 for the best truss rod money can buy, I think, or used to be. How much is a hot rod right now? Let's just check. Okay, well, it's from $13 to $24. The double action hot rod truss rod, right? I'll pay you the $20. Just put the good truss rod in there. Don't even put a crappy one in there. Put a good truss rod in there. Where is it? So somebody said, any Martin steel string guitar built before the mid-'80s will have a non-adjustable truss rod. Prior to 1967, they used a steel bar with a T-shaped cross-section. The necks were extremely stable. They didn't have adjustable truss rods, but they didn't need them. Bull crap. If you have a guitar, you need a truss rod. Let's say you don't get exactly the same strings. I know nylon strings don't put as much tension, but you still need a truss rod. I think this is nuts. Let's see. Let's see if there's somebody get a better answer. Originally, gut string guitars did not require a truss rod to counteract the much lower tension. But what about weather? What about everything else that you need for a truss rod for? Let's see. Come on. Wow, the Quora's really gotten bad, man. It's really hard to find the answers. That might be the only answer. Eek. All right. Okay. Do you have to use more than one mic to record clearly? Depends what you mean by clearly, right? If you just have one mic, you're not going to have any phase issues, are you? The second you put a second mic on, you are introducing phase. You can talk about the 3-to-1 rule, whatever, but if you do want to hear each instrument individually clearly, you want to find a way to capture just that source in isolation if you can. So ideally, you would have one mic or some way to input the sound. The guitars have pickups, drums, you could have triggers maybe. But in general, if you want to control in the mix, if you want to control the volume and tonality of an instrument, it needs its own input. But, you know, there's lots of people who do a really good job of one or two mics on everything. I don't think you can do that for modern stuff. And I know people pretend and they take pictures like they did, but they're full of crap when you hear the actual mix. You know, they used more microphones or more stuff anyway. So somebody else said, had an answer here. Can you use only one mic for recording? And this guy, recording engineer, music producer from 1990 to present, about as long as me, right? Yes, you sure can, although it's not particularly fashionable in modern recording, at least for bands. Things like drum kits usually have 8 or more mics on them. Often there could be 2 microphones on a single guitar amp and so on. But if you're really patient and have a talented band to record, okay, so the first one you might have, and you probably do from doing this kind of stuff. But the talented band part, that's a little trickier, right? You absolutely can record an entire band with one microphone. Engineer John Cunaberti had a series on YouTube called One Mic, the Minimalist Recording Series, and he goes to various studios with a single AEA R88 ribbon mic, sets it up in the middle of the room, spends a couple of hours moving the band to various positions while listening in the control room to hear what the balance is like. Once he's got everyone in a good spot, they hit record. In a few minutes, the song has been recorded. It's really quite amazing. Harkens back to it. Again, this is probably only going to work with hipster music. Look, we're looking at a Beardo with a cowboy hat on it. Let's hear. I'm going to play this just for a second so I don't get DMCA'd, because we are transformative in nature, right? Sounds pretty good, though. Well, let me see it on a big old death metal band. Good luck. I mean, if you're going to make music like that, you probably could do it with one mic. So pretty awesome, actually. The AER88 is a stereo mic, though. But again, we don't have to go crazy here. Okay. Why do you produce... This is such a good question. And this is... Noobs get attacked for asking questions like this. But this is a good question. It's a lot like the questions about mastering. Why do you produce music using studio monitors if they sound different from normal speakers and all your end listeners will use normal speakers, right? Why do we obsess about our control rooms and our studio monitors when we know it's going to go into a 65 Impala with one mono speaker, right? Lots of reasons, but if you know as the engineer what it's going to sound like in your studio, and you know what other albums you like sound like in your studio, you have a pretty good reference and a pretty good middle of the road for what's going to happen out there. Let's see what some answers here. The purpose of studio monitors is to allow the mixing engineer and other folks in the studio to hear an accurate representation of the music. Normal speakers have a wide variety of different sound quality and audio characteristics, so whatever you're listening to will sound different on each one, and the mixing engineer will have to take this into account when producing music. But they at least need to have an accurate representation of what they have to begin with in order to do so. I don't know about accurate. I think predictable. Like you already know what it's going to sound like. Some mix engineers do listen to a final mix on a few representative normal speakers and earbuds to see what they'll sound like. If you take a look at my room right now, you'll see several different speakers that I listen to after doing an accurate mix with the monitors. It's also important to note that while not all studio monitors are super accurate, that's why it's not accurate. Like remember, NS10s were like the thing for the longest time, and that's not exactly an accurate speaker, right? If the engineer is familiar with how their favorite monitors sound, then they will be able to use that to obtain an accurate idea of what the mix itself will sound like. For example, they can compare how it sounds to the way a different album sounds. Exactly. At the very least, all good monitors should avoid things like distortion, which will hide differences between different recordings. A studio monitor is designed to be revealing, including revealing flaws that may exist in a mix rather than to sound pretty good with everything, which is a design goal of many normal speakers. Pretty good. And this is a real question, and a very good one. I always see, do they really? Cora has just turned to crapola, man. Somebody else said nailed it. Bassist, producer, and mixer, 24-year veteran Logic Pro user. Sorry about that. Why I use studio monitors? Because they let me hear more of the original sound, and they are not designed to be flattering but honest. They have no bass boost, for example, so that when I mix the bass in a track, I can set it so it will be audible on small systems and not so intrusive on big ones. Really, it's the low end that really kicks your butt when it comes to studios, right? I mean, that's where we spend all our trapping. This ain't just foam on my walls. This foam is there for me to talk. Behind it is a lot of safe and sound. Some 3-inch rigid fiberglass. So this guy checks on his iPhones and stuff. Finally, so should I buy the SM58 or the mic preamp? Buy the SM58. We just did a second, like our audio myth busting panel with Glenn Fricker and Ethan Weiner. And we really didn't get into mic preamps and stuff here, but I hate when people tell noobs they got to go buy thousands of dollars of mic preamps. The mic preamps that come in your Focusrite Scarlett interface are fine. Any of those interfaces, they're fine. You really have to try hard to get a crappy mic preamp today. Get the better mic if that's what you're worried about. But don't go crazy. Okay. So I want to talk about silent stages. It's kind of a misnomer. It's not really a silent stage, but one thing we talk about all the time is when you're doing live stuff is stage volume. The louder it is on stage, the more leakage there is into other microphones. So like, let's say your guitar amp on stage is really loud. The louder it is, the more of it in comparison to the vocals will be in the vocal mic. So if you have no guitar amp on stage, there will be no guitar amp in your vocal microphone. If you have a really loud guitar amp on stage, there will be a lot of guitar amp in your vocal microphone. It's still probably going to be more of your vocals because of the inverse square law and everything else, but it's a problem. And especially if something's gated and this other sound pops in and out. I mean, for instance, of course, the hi-hats, when you hit a snare, open up the gate and the hi-hat comes flying in there. The quieter the different things are on stage relative to each other, the less of them will be leaking into each other, right? Most of what people talk about on silent stages nowadays, I think, is mostly to do with in-ear monitors. Instead of having really loud speakers that are the on-stage monitor for the band, they're wearing in-ear monitors and not having live wedges on the stage. That brings the volume down a lot. It also almost completely eliminates the possibility of feedback, definitely completely eliminates the possibility of feedback from the monitor speakers. Although, believe it or not, I've heard in-ear monitors feedback into the microphones. It's a really, sorry. It's almost a pathological situation that would make something like that happen, but crazier things have happened. But for the most part, really having in-ear monitors eliminates vocal monitor feedback at the very least, at least monitor speakers. And again, because there's less volume coming from those on the stage, the guitar player can turn his amp down, whatever. Now, in the age of modelers and things and speaker simulators and stuff, you don't necessarily have to have a gigantic amplifier on stage with you in order to hear it. You might just need a little monitor in front of you, or if you're wearing the in-ear monitors, you don't need it at all. With these modelers that you don't mic or don't have to mic, like the Helix or whatever, you're taking a direct out. So there's no longer a giant guitar amp on stage. And I know a lot of people, they say, oh, I got to bring this giant guitar amp so the audience can hear it. That kind of matters at small clubs, because if you're at a small enough club, you need your amplifier to get out there so the audience can hear it. But even out here, when we do our tiny little shows out here, I try and just point the guitar amps at the player, and then most of what the audience is hearing is from the PA speaker. You're hearing the amps from there. And if you're talking about a giant arena or whatever, even if you got 500 fake, those cardboard cutout Marshall amps, speakers on stage, what the audience is hearing is not the amp on stage. They're hearing the mic'd up amp or the modeler or whatever. And you just go down the line. The only thing you really can't control this on is the drums, so you can put a drum shield on. But again, if you get the stage volumes down, the drummer can play a little bit quieter or a lot quieter and still sound good. And one of the worst ones, of course, on stage is that the really loud cymbals leak into the vocal mics, and your vocal mics become auxiliary cymbal mics. Even if you're able to get the bass player and the guitar player to turn down, that vocal mic is still going to be auxiliary cymbal mics when you don't want them to be. We've started using practice cymbals and having really good luck with that. So thank you to everybody who's invented practice cymbals. And in fact, go on Facebook. This guy named Kevin Lee's out there selling, I don't know how to pronounce this, like Olmet cymbals, but we bought a set of oil slick ones, really awesome oil slick colored, and we're using those live, and they sound awesome. They sound like they're recorded, and they don't leak into the vocal mics anywhere near as bad. So that's basically what a silent stage means. And so here's, let me just read something from a forum. It says, the newer crop of sound engineers, in scare quotes, are increasingly only able to mix silent stages. This old fogey is ready to be put out to pasture, waiting for the avalanche of mojo sense, lol. I don't think that they're only able to mix silent stages. I think that they're able to mix silent stages, and a lot of the fogies can't. Mixing a silent stage is a lot like mixing an album. It might seem like that's an easier thing, but a lot of your stuff becomes a little bit more critical. So a lot of people push back on them. And but, the first post says, I'm probably just as old a fogey as you'll come across, but one of the best things that ever happened to me was adopting a silent stage setup. For the first time in almost 6 decades of playing, that's a lot, man. I was able to finally hear the entire band clearly with vocals actually sitting in the mix where they should be consistently. And that's what I'm seeing as we get the stage volumes down. And he also says, by the way, I doubt it has anything to do with the abilities of sound engineers. Mixing silent stage is no different than mixing stage monitors. It's all about individual aux channel adjustments, whether it's an in-ear monitor or a stage monitor. That's kind of true. I think leakage is going to be a little bit different. So somebody else answers, if they can only mix silent stages, they need to take the freaking cans off their heads. That's the biggest problem I've had with sound guys that come from a broadcast recording background, where the mentality is that if you don't hear it in the phones, neither will your audience. I could almost say if you don't hear it in the phones, neither should your audience, but that's a different story. The approach is commonly taught in trade schools, community colleges aiming to produce audio engineers for music and television studios. And to its credit, it covers a wide swath of the reasons to sit behind a mixing desk, including many of your larger professional live audio productions. However, it simply does not apply to the scenario of live sound reinforcement in a small to medium venue, ranging from hole-in-the-wall bar bands to 1,000-seat theaters and arenas and houses of worships. In these situations, when mixing for the room, the headphones are a spot checking tool mostly used to listen to things you don't want the audience to hear as part of the presentation. Your cue to how it sounds in the room should be to take the damn headphones off and listen to the room. This is presented kind of as a false dichotomy, which is the biggest problem I have with sound guys in general, especially volunteer sound techs I work with on Sundays. They are, with few exceptions, profoundly hearing impaired, up to and including stone deaf, whether they'll admit it or not. But I have a sneaking suspicion that deaf sound guys are one of the default deadest horses around here, so I won't spend too much time beating it. Another guy, I haven't gigged in about 8 or so years, but when the sound techs were telling me to drop the volume on my Princeton and AC4 to whisper quiet volumes just to re-amplify through the mains, not even monitors, I kind of knew I was done and slowly got into recording. That sounds like a problem with the sound guy, but let's see. There were a lot of guys. Yeah, music isn't my day job, but I would have retired years ago if not for in-ear monitors. No more ringing ears. Hold on one second.
checking on the world. Are you gonna be here for a bit?
Yeah.
Is somebody coming in tonight?
I don't think so.
Okay. Sam's here too, but Sam asked, but I was like, just checking on the world to see.
Okay.
You gonna be here for a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll shut down everything in the big room, but.
Okay, but you see, it's a little bit more compact now, right?
Yeah, I know it looks great.
And then I can bring those monitors down and put a second monitor up too, if you want, so that you don't have to crane your neck so much. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's what happens when you get a live stream going, right? Sorry about that. Okay. So they're talking about, playing tracks on stage, and of course, if you're gonna, backing tracks, whatever. Let's see. There's some stuff I wanted to talk about. A lot of people are talking about how they need an amp behind them. Fine, but just realize that the louder your stage volume is, the more trouble you're making for everybody else. But one of these guys is talking about, he keeps bringing his gigantic Fender Super Blaster amp and stuff. But yeah, like this guy says, okay, I've been a sound man on and off for decades, and as such, I've seen a lot of technology come and go. Yes, I can set up and mix a basic system with the old board and rack out front, 100-foot snake and 3 or 4-way passive mains with amp racks, hate them, wedges, side fill, etc., and get a decent sound as long as the band is cooperative. But even so, stage volume is always a challenge. And when we were making the Reaper Live system, where we're using, before all these mixers came out where you control with your iPad and iPhone or whatever, and we were controlling the mix with the laptop, the random weirdos were guinea pigging this. We had a Reaper rack out, and the final frontier was always drums. Like, I couldn't get the drum volume down until we started using electronic drums and running through like Steven Slate samples and stuff with the electronic drum set. But now with these practice cymbals, it's a little bit, kind of helps a lot. So he says, but why the hell would anyone want to? Newer digital boards that you can run with your iPad, eliminating the desk out front. And man, that was a beautiful thing, was I was carrying a laptop around and I could walk out where the audience was. I could hear exactly what the audience heard. You don't hear what the audience hears in your mixing console space, no matter where it is. You still got to walk around. I could go anywhere in the audience and mix from there. It was amazing. So he says, eliminating the desk out front as well as the snake save huge time in setup and sound check, have far fewer potential points of failure, and have similar advantages when tearing down. Silent stage, yep, I'm on board with that. It really makes for a better, in my opinion, front of house mix every time. As a player, I moved to modelers and Inear monitors as soon as I could, and man, what a profound moment. The first time I used Inear monitors at a rehearsal, you couldn't wipe the crap-eating grin off my face. Hearing myself clearly, as well as the mix I want, and having that mix follow me no matter where I stood on stage was pretty dramatic. I don't know how to put this, but I think it's like comparing surgical procedures during the Civil War to modern techniques. Yes. As for the cost to implement, anybody check the price of a boutique tube amp lady or a Les Paul? One of the things that is potentially a problem is, even if you got an iPhone and you can make your own monitor mix, is that having an amp on stage, if you want to hear more yourself, you can actually walk up and hear more. You may not have time to pull your phone out and change your mix. That's tricky, and it's a hard thing to deal with. And that, I know that's part of the fear when people are dealing with this stuff. But all right, let me read some answers here that I really liked. So this is from Milkman. And this is kind of how I talk about guitar players all the time, right? It really doesn't surprise me that a demographic group that still swears by technology developed in the 1930s and who are willing to pay a premium for artificially aged instruments. You know what I'm talking about? These fake old guitars. As if old guitars were any better. We talked about that just a little bit ago, right? Is reluctant to embrace new ways of doing things. And it's true. Oh yeah, man. Remember when in the 90s when all the rack stuff went away? Like the beginning of the 90s, we had all this high-tech stuff, and then everything got dumbed down for these vintage bozos. I think guitar players would benefit from sitting behind the front of house board for other bands' performances to hear the difference. Yes. Yes. And that's one of the things that happens. The bands go up on stage, and then when they come to listen to the other bands, they go, hey, how come we didn't sound that good? We sound like crap compared to that. Well, yeah, because your stuff was way too loud on stage, and I told you. As a sound man, I work with the bands the way they like to play. All things being equal, cough, talent. The bands that sound the best are the ones willing to try thinking outside of the box. Yes. And another one here. And this is really important. Hey, when you begin selling out 10,000 seat stadiums, you can run your stage volume as loud as you want, and I'll be glad to work with you. Until then, stop bringing your 50-watt Marshalls. I wish it was only 50-watt Marshalls. You guys are bringing these gigantic things. Until then, stop bringing your 50-watt Marshalls and 80-watt Twins to play a 25-seat room. You're not a rock star. Let your ego go and do what's best for the band and what's best for the sound out on the floor. Don't be a pain in the butt for your sound guy. He doesn't get paid enough to deal with you, and he's probably not that experienced, so be easy on him. Lots of people in this thread haven't had much experience working with good audio engineers in professional spaces, and it shows. I think that kind of says it all. And that's really all I got for this week. I didn't have too much. I really wanted to show White Tie's theme adjuster, and still, it's right here. This is so awesome. You guys, if you're using Reaper, go grab this theme adjuster right now. If you're not using Reaper, what's wrong with you? Go grab Reaper.